Okay, so we've planted, it's November 2019, we've planted our new Pfumvunza plots for this year. You'll be able to see the maize has just come through. We planted on time, and on my left here, that's where we're going to be planting our soybeans. The furrows are in. You can see the beautiful mulch from last year's maize crop. So everything is looking good, and we're looking forward to a good season this season, unlike last season. So you will remember that the 2018-2019 season, which we recorded last year, the season was unkind to Zimbabwe. We had a pretty severe drought in most parts of the country. That resulted in the country only producing 776,000 metric tons of grain. According to government statistics, 1.6 million hectares of maize was planted, and I would estimate that the input costs for that was well over $2 billion. A lot of those input costs are in scarce foreign currency. But against this backdrop, our Pfumvunza plots did really well. And it's just a testimony to sometimes less is more. The plots last year, this particular maize crop, you'll remember, went over 9 tons per hectare. Which goes to show that if done properly with the correct management, if maize is planted on time to a very high standard, without wastage and with joy, you can achieve good yields despite whatever the weather throws at you. Now, I know we did have a bad drought, but our Pfumvunza model is so small that you can water it if you have a dry spell, and that will bring the crop through to make sure that you have enough food to feed a family. Remember that the Pfumvunza plot, it's 39 meters by 16 meters. That's all it is, 1/16 of a hectare. And we know that that can feed a family of 6 for a year. So it is our contention that had Pfumvunza been embraced nationally, we could have produced that same amount of maize, the 776,000 tons of maize, could have been produced on 100,000 hectares, costing less than $80 million. That is the reality if things are done well, on time, and to a very high standard. This also would have meant that we wouldn't have had to spend foreign currency importing maize from our neighboring countries. So now we need to look ahead. The past is behind us. We're looking forward to a good season this year. The projections are we'll have a sort of a normal rainy season. So as I said, we've planted, and we're going to be watching these crops grow. But we believe that if this Pfumvunza model was embraced nationally, we would need a fraction of the money that is required to feed our nation. Zimbabwe needs 1.8 million tons to feed herself and livestock for 12 months. Remembering that Pfumvunza plots are very small and mitigate against drought because they can be watered by hand during a dry spell, it is not inconceivable that the national requirement of 1.8 million tons of maize can be supplied if every rural household, and they are very capable, and even urban households with access to a bit of land, planted one Pfumvunza plot each. We humbly submit that food security can be achieved by planting 4 million Pfumvunza plots, which is only 250,000 hectares. The fertilizer and seed inputs for this would be a mere $200 million. Can you imagine what this could do to the balance of payments for a nation? By being faithful with little, God adds, and we can reap bumper yields and feed our country. So this might sound pie in the sky, it might sound unachievable, but we are Zimbabweans and we're allowed to dream, and this, I know, can happen if we put our backs into it and we realize that less is more. We need to grow small amounts really well, and we can achieve food security throughout a nation.